18 Floors the Light Across the Street, Episode 1. Lina had learned, somewhere in her 28 years, that a city could hold 8 million people and still make you feel like the only person left awake in it. She worked on the 14th floor of a glass tower that reflected other glass towers, in a job that paid enough to justify the apartment, the view, the version of her life that looked, from the outside, like she'd figured something out. She was good at the job. She was, by most measurable standards, good at being a person. She remembered coworkers' kids' names, brought donuts on Fridays without being asked, laughed at the right volume at the right moments in meetings. People liked her. People liked her the way you like a well-run coffee shop. Reliably, warmly, without ever wondering what happened to it after closing time. What happened to it after closing time was this. She rode the elevator up 18 floors to an apartment with a view expensive enough to be featured in the building's marketing materials. And she stood at the window some nights, with a glass of wine she didn't really want, watching a city of 8 million lit windows, and felt, with a specificity that embarrassed her, that she did not belong to a single one of them. Some mornings, before the coffee maker had even finished dripping, she'd catch her own hand reaching into the cabinet for a second mug. An old habit from a different year, a different version of her life that hadn't gotten the memo it was over. She always put it back before the machine finished. She had several systems for managing her life. That one had never once made it onto a list. Some nights, that view held her attention a little too long. A particular window, 3 floors down and to the left, spare and clean-lined, a single tall bookshelf along one wall, a desk lamp always angled low in the corner like it was aimed at paper rather than a person. The light there never seemed to go out. She told herself she wasn't the kind of person who noticed things like that. She was, obviously, exactly that kind of person. She called her mother every Sunday at 6. Busy, good, so good. Work's great. Yes, I'm eating. No, I haven't met anyone. I'm not looking, Mom. I'm happy. She had gotten so proficient at the performance that some Sundays she nearly believed it herself. There was a folder in her phone's notes app called, with no particular irony intended, Drafts. Most of it was work. Emails half-written, a resignation letter she'd started twice and never finished. But near the bottom, dated 14 months back, was a message to a name she'd stopped saying out loud. Nate. I keep thinking about the version of us where I said something instead of just leaving. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe that's the answer. She had never sent it. She opened the folder sometimes, late, the way other people check old photographs, and closed it again without editing a word, as if leaving it exactly as written was its own kind of discipline. She had a theory, one she'd never said aloud to anyone, that competence was just fear wearing a nicer coat. If she was good enough at her job, thoughtful enough with her friends, reliable enough with her family, no one would ever have reason to look closer and find the parts of her that weren't managing anything at all. It was, she knew, an exhausting way to be loved. It was also, as far as she could tell, the only way she knew how to ask for it. She met him on a Tuesday that didn't feel like it was going to matter, which she would later think was the only kind of Tuesday that ever does. Fig and Fern was nearly full. The rain had sent half the neighborhood in search of the same thing she wanted, somewhere warm that wasn't home. And she'd claimed the last open two-top with the specific, slightly territorial body language of a woman who'd had a long day. She was 3 sentences into a work email she didn't feel like finishing when a voice, low and careful, asked if the other chair was taken. It's not, she said, in the sense that her jacket was on it, and moved it before she'd fully looked up. When she did look up, she found a man about her age, dark hair damp from the rain, a sketchbook tucked under one arm like something he was protecting rather than carrying.
You looked like you were defending that chair.
He said, sitting. I was. You look like you're smuggling something. He glanced down at the sketchbook as if surprised to find it there.
Occupational hazard.
What's the occupation?
Architect.
Of course it is, Lina said. You have the face of a man who's mad at a building somewhere. That got the first real reaction out of him. Not quite a laugh, but the ghost of one, gone almost as fast as it arrived.
There's a parking structure on 9th I think about more than is healthy.
Tell me about the parking structure.
You don't want to hear about the parking structure.
I have nowhere to be and a coffee that isn't going to last much longer. Try me. He did, a little. Badly proportioned columns, a roofline he called an apology, structurally speaking, and she found herself laughing for real. The kind of laugh that surprised her a little on the way out, rusty from disuse. He ordered black coffee in a voice that made the barista, who Lina had watched flirt with half the neighborhood, simply nod and turn away. No small talk attempted. You do that to everyone, she said. Close the door before they've even knocked.
Do I?
You did it to her just now. You're doing it to your sketchbook right now, actually. He'd set it face down on the table without seeming to notice himself doing it. What's in there? Buildings that need apologies?
Something like that.
That's not an answer,
I know.
he said, and there was something almost pleased about the way he said it, like he'd been waiting for someone to notice he was dodging and hadn't expected to enjoy being caught. They didn't exchange numbers. She didn't tell him she worked in finance, technically, the flattened description she gave everyone. She found herself, oddly, not wanting to give it to him, though she couldn't yet have said why. They just sat, mostly in comfortable silence after that, two people equally relieved to be somewhere warm. And when she finally stood to leave, he said,
Same time, probably, if the rain keeps up.
in a tone that made it sound like a fact about weather rather than a plan involving her. She didn't tell him about the window she'd been watching for months. She had no reason yet to think it was his. She went back on Thursday, not because he'd said to, and definitely not because she'd thought about the parking structure joke twice on the train. And he was there, same corner booth, sketchbook open this time. She sat across from him without asking, an assumption she caught herself making before she could examine it.
You have a system, don't you?
He said, watching her set her phone face down at a precise right angle to her cup.
For things.
I have several systems.
For coffee orders?
I have a spreadsheet, she admitted, and watched his eyebrows do something complicated. Don't. It's efficient.
I didn't say anything.
You did the eyebrow thing.
I have no control over my eyebrows.
You absolutely do. You're an architect. You control everything down to the millimeter, and you're telling me you can't control two eyebrows?
Buildings don't judge me back.
He said.
Eyebrows are a two-way street.
She laughed again, that same rusty surprise sound, and reached for the sugar at the same moment he did, their hands colliding over the little ceramic bowl in a way that was objectively not a big deal, and somehow made her lose the thread of what she'd been about to say for a full 3 seconds.
You can have it.
He said. I don't even take sugar.
Then why did you...
I don't know, she said, and he almost smiled. The real thing this time, quick and unguarded, and she thought, with some alarm, that she would like to see that again on purpose. They argued, lightly, about whether the crooked painting behind the register bothered him. It clearly did. She watched him resist, twice, the urge to get up and straighten it. And she found it, perversely, one of the most charming things she'd seen a grown man do.
It's 2 degrees off level.
He said.
Maybe 3.
It's been like that for a year. I like it.
You like a mistake.
I like that nobody's fixed it. Means somebody in here has better things to do than chase 2 degrees. She watched that land somewhere behind his eyes, something he filed away rather than argued with. Not everything crooked needs straightening,
Careful.
he said.
That's the kind of thing that gets cross-stitched onto a pillow.
I contain multitudes, she said, and he laughed. Actually laughed, out loud, the sound catching the barista's attention from across the room. And Lina felt something in her chest do a small, undignified flip that she chose, for the moment, not to examine too closely. Somewhere in the 3rd week of this, she'd started, without quite admitting it to herself, keeping count. She asked him what he actually did all day, expecting the polite, abbreviated version people give strangers. He gave her the real one instead. The way a building has to lie to the ground it sits on a little. Distribute weight it isn't advertising. Hide the effort so what's left looks effortless. That's the least romantic description of architecture I've ever heard, she said.
I didn't say it was romantic. I said it was honest.
He turned his cup a quarter turn, the way he did when he was about to say something he hadn't fully decided to say yet.
Most of what looks stable is just weight, redistributed well enough that nobody has to think about it.
She thought about her own carefully load-bearing life. The Sunday calls, the flattened job description, the folder she never opened in front of anyone, and said nothing, because agreeing out loud felt like admitting to a kind of architecture she wasn't ready to have him see the blueprints for yet. It was the 4th time, not the 2nd, that he told her where he lived. She'd asked, by then, mostly to have something to write on the small mental map she'd started keeping of him. She knew he hated cilantro and elevators that played music, and loved, with an intensity that seemed to embarrass him, buildings from the 1920s with hand-set tile.
Ashland.
He said.
4th floor from the top, if you're ever looking up at the wrong building for no reason.
Lina went very still in a way she hoped didn't show. I might live across the street from you, she said. He looked at her properly then, not the deflecting look he gave most of the room, but an actual look, assessing, faintly startled.
18th floor.
He said slowly.
Corner unit. Lights usually on late.
That's me, she said, and felt her pulse do something complicated.
I've seen your light.
He admitted, something almost embarrassed in it.
I assumed corporate type, working late.
I've seen yours too, she said. It's never off. Something crossed his face then, gone before she could name it. He picked up his coffee, though it was long empty, the universal gesture of a man buying himself a second before deciding how much truth to hand over.
Yeah.
He said.
It doesn't go off.
He didn't explain it that night. She didn't push. But something had shifted between them. 2 lit windows, facing each other across a city street. Each keeping a vigil the other had apparently been quietly wondering about for months, now sitting 6 feet apart with actual faces attached to the mystery. He told her about his father 2 weeks later, on a night when the cafe had nearly emptied and the barista had started stacking chairs with theatrical patience.
He used to say a house isn't finished until it has 1 window that stays lit.
Liam said, turning his cup in slow half circles, not quite looking at her.
Said it was a promise, that somebody's still awake in there, still willing to be found if you need finding.
Is that why yours never goes off? He was quiet long enough that she thought she'd pushed too far.
He died 18 months ago. Hospital, the last 3 weeks. He hated the half-dark those rooms have at night. Never really dark, just machines blinking. So I left the bathroom light on for him, door cracked, every night, like he was 6, and so was I.
He set the cup down, finally still.
Couldn't fix what was happening to him. Could only do that. He died anyway. I just never stopped doing it.
Lina didn't reach for his hand or offer the practiced sympathy she'd perfected for coworkers' minor tragedies. She sat with it, let the silence hold what it needed to, and said, "That's not a habit. That's a promise you kept." Something in his shoulders came down half an inch. It was her turn, though nobody kept score. She'd meant to tell him the flattened version, the promotion, the ambition, the general shape of a woman who'd optimized herself into a corner, but her phone lit up on the table between them with one of the app's cheerful, merciless memories. 1 year ago today. A photograph, before she could swipe it away. Her and a man with an easy, sunburned grin, a train platform, 2 coffees, a whole future implied in the framing. Liam didn't ask. That was, she would think later, the thing that undid her. He simply waited, giving her the exit if she wanted it. "Nate," she said, "we were supposed to take that trip together. I left 3 days before we were supposed to leave." Didn't explain it well. Haven't really explained it since, actually. Not even to myself. She turned her phone face down, the old reflex then, for the first time in 14 months, turned it back over and looked at the photo a second longer than she needed to. I have a text to him I never sent. Still sitting in my drafts. I open it sometimes, like it's going to have changed.
What does it say?
That I keep thinking about the version of us where I said something, instead of just leaving. She almost laughed, the sound catching wrong in her throat. Some mornings, I still take out 2 mugs before I remember. Guess systems don't fix everything. She looked back down at the photo a moment longer, then set the phone face down again, gently this time. I used to think if people saw how much I actually needed people, they'd realize I wasn't as put together as I let them think, and they'd leave. Or worse, stay out of pity.
I don't think that.
Liam said simply, like correcting a small factual error. You've known me 3 weeks.
I've known you at midnight, 3 weeks running, when you had every excuse to say you were tired and go home.
He shrugged, small and unpracticed.
Pity doesn't come back for the check.
She laughed, surprised into it, and something in her chest loosened by one careful degree. There was a version of that night, she thought later, walking home, where she could have kept the conversation there. Light, resolved, the kind of exchange 2 people have and then agree, without discussing it, never to revisit. She noticed, with some discomfort, that she hadn't wanted to. She'd wanted to keep going, to see how much further the honesty extended, before one of them got scared and reached for a joke instead. That wanting, more than the story about Nate, was the thing that actually frightened her on the walk home. It wasn't uncomplicated. There was a night, 5 weeks in, when Liam went quiet in a different way than his usual quiet. Distant instead of comfortable. And when she asked what was wrong, he said, too evenly, that he had an early morning and left before his coffee was finished. She didn't hear from him for 4 days. She watched his window every one of those nights, the light steady as ever, and told herself it meant nothing, and knew that it meant something, and hated how much she'd let herself need to know which. On the 5th night, she crossed the street and buzzed his apartment before she could talk herself out of it. He came down in sweatpants, hair unbrushed, looking like a man who hadn't slept properly in days. "Are you going to keep doing this?" she asked. "Disappearing?" He didn't answer right away. His hand stayed on the doorframe, knuckles pale, eyes fixed somewhere past her shoulder, on the street, on nothing in particular. The silence went on long enough that she almost turned to leave.
I got scared.
He said finally.
Getting close to someone again. Last time I let myself need someone that much, I lost him. And I don't know how to do this without being terrified the whole way through.
I'm not asking you not to be terrified, Lina said. I'm asking you not to disappear instead of telling me you're terrified. There's a difference. He looked at her for a long moment in the doorway light, in a hallway that smelled like someone's dinner 2 floors up. And something in his face did the thing faces do when a person decides, consciously, to stop protecting themselves from the one thing they actually want.
Okay,
He said.
come up. I'll leave the door open.
Halfway up the stairs, some of the tension finally leaving his shoulders, he glanced back at her.
Is this going in the spreadsheet?
Everything goes in the spreadsheet, she said. You're a whole tab now. That night, before she left in the early morning, she opened her drafts folder one last time and deleted the message to Nate without rereading it. It felt less like erasing something and more like, finally, quietly, hitting send on the only version of it that had ever mattered, the leaving itself, acknowledged instead of hidden. 6 months in, she asked him if he still needed the light on every night, or if it was just habit by now.
Both, I think.
He said, considering it with the seriousness he gave everything.
Still a promise to him. But some nights now, it's just... I like knowing you can see it. Feels less like a vigil and more like a signal.
To who?
To you.
He said, like it was obvious.
In case you're standing at your window, wondering if anyone else in the city is still awake and thinking about you.
She still reached, some days, for the practiced smile before remembering she didn't need it here. But she'd started leaving her own light on differently. Not the automatic burn of avoiding an empty room, but on purpose, the way you'd leave a porch light on for someone you were fairly sure was coming home. Some mornings, she still reached for a second mug before she caught herself. That hadn't gone away, not entirely, and she'd stopped expecting it to. The difference now was what happened next. Some of those mornings, before she could put it back, Liam's hand got there first and filled it. One ordinary Wednesday, rain coming in sideways again the way it had the night they met, Lina stood at her window with a glass of wine she actually wanted and looked for the light 3 floors down and to the left. It wasn't there. For the first time in the 1.5 years she'd been watching it, Liam's window was dark. She stood very still, 1 second, 2, her mind already reaching for the worst small stories it could tell her, until her phone buzzed on the counter behind her.
Come downstairs.
She looked back at the dark window once more before she moved. He hadn't needed to send the signal tonight. He'd come himself. That was the night the light stopped being the whole conversation. Not the end of it. Old habits die slowly, and some nights a lamp still went on in one window before either of them had said a word, out of instinct more than need. But it became from then on the start of a longer one, conducted mostly in cafes and doorways and unhurried mornings that turned into unhurried years, that neither of them, as far as anyone could tell, was in any particular hurry to finish.